Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 9 o'clock on a Thursday, which means it's time for a Magic Stuff. And this week I'm revisiting the 3 trick series. Once again, I'm going to be looking at 3 tricks you've never seen before, but these are 3 gambling routines that you've never seen before. Now this is kind of a little bit different, a little bit unusual for me, because I've mentioned on the channel over and over again, I'm not really a big fan of gambling routines, and I'm just really not. I don't gamble. I don't really understand the rules of poker beyond kind of roughly understanding it. Same with blackjack, same with roulette. You put me into a casino, I wouldn't really have a clue. So because of that, I think that when you perform magic, you need to perform magic that you personally enjoy. I see people doing the long, drawn-out poker deals and stuff like that, and it just really doesn't interest me. It never has. So I don't do very many gambling routines. However, I do a couple, and I'll tell you why I do a couple. It's because sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you're performing for a bunch of guys that go, "Oh, we'd like to play cards with you. Can you cheat at cards? Tell me, can you cheat at cards?" And you kind of go, "Well, yeah, I probably could. Oh, can you show me?" You want to kind of have a set, or you want to have a few routines that you can do that will kind of make those people happy. Also, I've had gigs in the past in casinos. I've actually had residences in the past in casinos. And part of the deal was I do routines that appeal to gamblers and people that play cards. So I had to kind of go down that route as well. So I do some gambling routines. But I stay away from the more traditional gambling routines that you kind of see. And a lot of gambling routines, it's not always the case, but a lot of gambling routines I see, they kind of follow the same sort of process, which is kind of long and drawn out and dealing 5 hands of poker, and now let's assemble them again and deal 5 more hands of poker. And that just kind of doesn't interest me. I'm not the biggest fan of the 10-card poker deal. I've kind of studied it in the past, and that's fine. And I think one of the best versions of that kind of plot is Hit by Luke Jamay. I reviewed that a little while ago, and I thought that was really good. But generally, by the by, 10-card poker deals are also something that I don't really get myself into or invest myself into much. But there are some routines that I do. Now, you wouldn't normally think of these routines as a hardcore gambling demonstration, because generally as a rule they're not, to be perfectly honest, but they fit me. And what I mean by that, I'm only ever going to perform routines like this when I'm in a situation where I'm being asked, "Oh, well, I'd like to play cards with you, can you show me your skills?" That sort of thing. That's when I'll bust these sort of routines out, which happens on a fairly regular basis. And because of that, a lot of the routines that I do that kind of have a gambling flavour to them, you don't see a lot of people doing. So I'm going to present to you on this video 3 gambling routines, or 3 routines that I present in a gambling way that you might not have seen before. And one of them is really well known, but it's so old, I don't think many people do it anymore. It's absolutely brilliant. But we're going to start off with a routine by Darwin Ortiz, because when you think of gambling routines, obviously one of the first names that comes to mind is Darwin Ortiz. So let's have a look at that one first. Okay, so the first routine we're going to look at is by Darwin Ortiz, and this is a great routine. This is out of his latest book, and I'll tell you right now, it uses a mem deck, and anyone who's watching this knows that I'm a huge advocate of the mem deck. I love the mem deck. I use Mnemonica all the time. Ryland uses Mnemonica all the time. We've done a lot of videos on this channel about the 3 best mem deck routines you've never seen before. Yeah, love Mnemonica, love mem decks, always have. This uses a mem deck in a very interesting way. Because what it does is it's kind of really weird actually. You're taking a deck that's in memorized order, and you're telling the audience that you're going to memorize this deck. Now, obviously, you've already memorized the deck. They don't know that. So then you proceed to memorize the deck, apparently in an incredibly quick way, and then show them how you can actually use the ability to very quickly memorize a deck to cheat at cards. So and it's kind of a very interesting premise that you don't normally see, because most gambling routines, that they focus more on, hey, this is how to do a second deal, this is how to do a bottom deal. They don't focus on, hey, can you imagine what you could do as a gambler if you could very quickly memorize a deck of cards? And I know I've had people in the past say to me, oh, that's not really gambling, because, you know, how could you memorize a deck that fast? And Darwin sums this up perfectly in the book. He said, you know, you should be showing people, if you're doing a gambling routine, you should be showing people skills that they think are absolutely impossible, because that's what a gambler would do. And this is a perfect example of that. Now we're going to perform it. I'm going to perform it first of all and show you exactly what this routine looks like. And then when I've performed it, we'll come back here and I'll talk to you about why it's so good. Luke.
Hello.
So Luke, do you play cards?
No, not really, mate.
I don't really play cards very often myself, but I have studied techniques that gamblers use to cheat at cards.
Right.
And a lot of people, when they think of card cheating, they immediately go to something like second dealing, which is dealing the second card from the deck, bottom dealing, which is dealing the bottom card from the deck, or card counting. I'm sure you've heard of card counting and things like that. But there are other techniques that you need to be able to learn if you are going to cheat at cards. Now, this wouldn't necessarily work as a casino, because at a casino it's very, very limited. They deal out the shoe, so it's very difficult to do the technique that I'm about to show you right now. But if you're playing around with mates, or you're in a kind of an unsanctioned game and you have access to the deck, this is something that you can absolutely do, and it will lead to you pretty much winning every single time if you follow what I'm about to show you. Okay? So the first thing that you need to be able to do is you need to be able to memorize the deck of cards very, very quickly. And it has to be really quick, because the problem is, if you spend ages memorizing the deck, the other players will realize that there's something going on. So this is how you do it. Watch. What I would do in a game if I wanted to memorize the deck, let's just say that you've shuffled the cards and you hand me the cards to deal, is I would do this. Now that doesn't look that dodgy, but what it's done is it's caused me to memorize the deck of cards. Which means now I can technically locate any card in the deck. So, for example, name a card for me.
Six of clubs.
The six of clubs. Are you sure?
Yeah.
You see, if I wanted to get the six of clubs, I know where it is. I just have to kind of spread down to get to it. It's right there. Right.
Yeah.
The key thing, though, obviously, is to cut to it. If I was able to cut to it a little bit like that, then it becomes a little bit more impressive, right? Because then the ability to be able to cut the cards and cut to the card that you want is a really important ability to have. Let's try this again. Jack, can you do me a favour? Can you name a card for me? Even, by the way, what I just did there was a false cut. So I just cut the deck, but I've kept the deck in the same order, so it's still in the same memorised order that I had before. Right. So Jack, name a card for me.
Eight of clubs.
The eight of clubs. Now, I know that that's 33 cards down. I know it's exactly 33 cards down. Now, I could cut to it if I wanted to, but let me show you what it would look like. Yeah, right about there. Eight of clubs, that's what you wanted, right?
Yeah.
And it is genuinely 33 cards down. So because I know it's 33 cards down, I can cut directly to that position and get the eight of clubs. Now, in case you think I'm joking, look, it really is 33 cards down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. I can even tell you where it is. The 32nd card, because obviously, the 32nd card is the Jack of Diamonds, and the 34th card is the 10 of Spades, I believe. So that would be between the Jack of Diamonds and the 10 of Spades. Yeah, you see. So it's really important to be able to memorize the deck. Yeah. Now, there is one other technique to know. So let's say that I know that the eight of clubs is 33 cards down, right? Which I do. I know it's 33 cards down. There's one other technique that you need to be able to learn, and that's a center deal. Right. Now, you've heard of a bottom deal, which is taking the bottom card off the deck, and the second deal is taking the second card off the deck. If you can memorize the deck of cards that quickly, you should be able to do a center deal, which is dealing from the center of the deck. Now, what you want to do is you want to deal the 33rd card. Let's say I needed that eight of clubs to win the game. I need to be able to pick up the deck and deal the 33rd card down, maybe into your hand, but make it look like I'm just taking the top card of the deck. Now, this is very difficult, but it looks something like this. Did that look fairly good?
That looked brilliant.
Yeah, it looked like it came off the top. Now, do you remember? 33 cards down. It was in between the Jack of Diamonds and the 10 of Spades. It's no
Yeah, it
longer
was.
there because I just dealt it to you.
That's good.
That is why you never play cards with a magician. So there you go. I mean, it's an incredible routine. Let's talk about why I love it so much. First of all, it's different, it's unique, it's plausible that you could memorize a deck of cards. And having that claim of, look how fast I can memorize a deck of cards is ridiculous, but you then go down the route of actually proving it by showing them that you've memorized the deck of cards that quickly, which I absolutely love. I love that premise. Second of all, it's kind of mind-blowing, you know, just having somebody freely name a card and then just spreading to the deck and saying, hey, right, okay, it's there. Name a card, and you're spreading to the deck and it's there. It's very disarming, and the technique that Darwin uses to do that is great, and it works really, really well. He's got many different variations in his various books of how to actually get directly to a card without kind of just doing an estimated cut, and this is one of those examples. And even though it's multi-phase, what I like is each phase really builds. So you've got the first phase of, you know, I've memorized this deck of cards, name a card, yeah, that'd be about there. And then you've got the second phase of them just cutting the deck and cutting directly to the card. Now, when Darwin does this in his book, he actually tables the deck. And he uses a very, very unique style of breather, or not breather, sorry, a crimp, to keep track of where it is that he needs to cut, so that then he can come over and do a table cut directly to that position, which is fine. But to be honest, having performed this for years, I find it just as impressive to just hold a break and just cut directly to that card, which is very easy to do because you've just spread to that card anyway. So it's a case of holding a pinky bag. Now, to a magician, that's probably not as impressive, but to a layman, that's just as impressive. So you've got that second phase. Now, I always repeat that with the second person. Darwin doesn't do that, but I always repeat it with the second person. And that's another thing that I love about this trick. It bears repeat. What you do is so impossible. I love the fact that you can do it again. And the second time, what I do is I spread the cards out on the table. And I say to them, you know, like 20 cards down, boom, look, there it is. There's the Jack of Hearts. In case you think that I'm joking and I haven't cut 20 cards, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it's just an amazing moment. It really is. And this is what I mean about a very unique style of gambling routine. It's not the normal style of gambling routine that you see. Then, and this is my favorite part, I absolutely love this. And again, this is something that I've changed to fit my ability level, I'm going to say, because there's no way I could ever do a center deal. I love that moment where after the second card, you go, now, if I really have memorized the deck of cards, I can tell you what's on either side. And then you tell them which card is on either side, which is really cool. And then you show that it's in between those cards. And you square up the cards and you talk about the center deal. And you talk about dealing a card out the center of the deck. And then you do that deal. And you spread through the deck and show that that card is no longer in between the two that it was a second ago. And then you turn it over and you've dealt it to the table. Now, when Darwin does that, he actually does a center deal because he is an absolute god. When I do it, I am not a god by any stretch of the imagination. So I use a side steal to just, as I'm squaring up the cards, side steal that card to the top of the deck. And then, once I've side stealed it to the top of the deck, I can make it look like I'm dealing out the center, but I'm really dealing from the top of the deck. And then at the end, you know, that's a perfect ending to this routine. So you've set up the gambling premise, you've talked about the ability to memorize a deck, you've shown them how useful it is to be able to memorize a deck, you've had a couple of cards named, and don't forget, having a card named is so strong. And then, you know, you've cut to those cards very, very fairly, and then you finished off with this demonstration of a center deal. The deck is left in mem deck order, so you can go into any of the mem deck routine that you want to, or if you're continuing with the gambling demonstration theme, you can then shuffle the deck and go into any routine that you want to. But it's a really great routine. I don't see many people doing it, maybe because a lot of magicians don't use a mem deck, I don't know. But I've never seen a lot of magicians doing this. And the premise, it's one of the strongest routines I do. When I have somebody say, hey, I would like to play cards with you, show me what you can do. Once I've done this, they're just convinced that I'm some sort of card cheat expert. So it's really, really good. It's well worth learning. You can get it out of Darwin's latest book. I highly recommend learning it. If you are into mem deck magic or you are into gambling routines or both, it's definitely worth checking out. And if you combine this with Test Your Luck, which is another routine by Darwin, which also has a gambling style theme to it, which I think was from the same book. And I talked about this on the previous magic stuff. You've got a really nice gambling set there. Anyway, let's have a look at a second routine. Okay, so the second routine that I find fits the gambling theme really well is Estimation Aces, or Easy Estimation Aces by Paul Gordon. Now, Paul Gordon has written, I think, 4,000 magic books at this point, maybe 5,000, I'm not too sure, I've lost count. And over the years, he's published some amazing card magic, he really has. If I had to nail down on one Paul Gordon routine that for me is the best out of everything he's ever done, it's this one. Now, different people have different Paul Gordon routines that they love, and that's absolutely fine. For me, it's this. I have done this for absolutely years, because even if you're not a card player, and even if I'm performing to a couple of people that play cards, but a whole bunch of people that don't play cards, everybody understands that having the ability to cut to the four aces is a skill that would be very useful in cards. It's a very useful skill to be able to use in a game of poker or blackjack or something like that. And what's really nice about this routine is it appears so fair. I love the fact that, the cards get lost in the deck. You openly show they're in different parts of the deck. You shuffle them. I love the fact that you're using lots of different shuffles. It's almost like you're giving people a lesson in how to hold and use a pack of cards. And then you've got this really nice moment where you're apparently cutting to the aces. And, the spectator cuts the aces routines out there. There's millions of ace productions that have been published over the years. But if you're wanting to convince people that you have real skill with a deck of cards, this just ticks all of the boxes because it looks so impossible. You say the first card's 15 cards down. Boom, you cut and you show that it's actually you've cut directly to an ace. I mean, it's just incredible. I'm going to do a performance for you, a live performance, so you can see exactly how this plays, and then we'll come back and I'll tell you why it's so good. So, Luke, we're going to do something with the deck of cards.
Okay.
And a lot of people say to me when they find out I'm a magician, can you teach me how to cheat at cards? And it's actually fairly easy to cheat at cards if you know what you need to learn. And you don't need to learn everything, but what you do need to do is be able to keep track of certain cards. Now, we'll use the four aces because everyone knows what the four aces look like. Yeah. It might not necessarily be the four aces. You might want to keep track of 5 cards, and you might want to keep track of like a royal flush. It's very important to be able to keep track of where the different cards are, even when the cards are being shuffled. So if I take these aces and put them into 4 different parts of the deck, and I want you to see here that they really have gone into 4 different parts of the deck. Is that fair? Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna give them a bit of a shuffle as well. We'll give them one of these shuffles. The thing is, you don't normally see people shuffling like that at a card table. So we'll what
shuffle's that?
That's called a Hindu shuffle. Mm-hmm. That one there is called a waterfall shuffle. This one here is called just an overhand shuffle. I'm sure you've heard of this one.
Do need to learn some of these shuffles.
It's fairly useful. And then obviously the other thing that you want to learn is like a running cut. That's fairly useful. The other one that is useful to learn is a pharaoh shuffle. This is a pharaoh shuffle because what it does is it actually mixes the cards like that. That's a nice shuffle to use as well. But the point is, you want to make sure that as you're doing all of these shuffles and all of these cuts, you're keeping track of where the aces are. Mm-hmm. So I know, for example, the first ace is 17 cards down. So if I cut exactly 17 cards, I can cut to an ace. Now, 1 card more and 1 card less, I would have missed completely. Yeah. So it's really important that when you do this, you cut exact every single time. This is called estimation. That's the other skill you need to learn, estimation. You need to learn card control, keeping track of cards, card estimation. And you also want to keep track of those cards even when you're cutting. So I might throw a few series of cuts in at this point. I might do this, which is kind of like an up the ladder cut, but all of the time, you want to keep track of where those aces are. Like I know the next one is 22 cards. No, that's a little bit light. Let me try again. 22 would be there. Yeah. And again, 1 card more, 1 card less, I would have missed completely. It's very important that you get this right, else it's... So the next one is 37 cards down. Now it's difficult. It's quite difficult to get to the 30. When the cards are deeper down in the deck, it's quite difficult to get them. So what I want to do is I want to cut 20 cards. I want it more nearer the top. 17th position would be great. So if I can take 20 cards and cut them to the bottom, I can then have that card in the 17th position, which will be more accessible for me. So what I'd do is I'd just give the cards what looks like a series of cuts, and that would move 20 cards from the top to the bottom, which means that the card is now 17 down. Well, actually, let me show you. I'll prove it to you. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And again, one card more, one card less I would have missed.
Wizard.
Don't know about that. Let's try this. You can do the last one yourself, okay? And I know you've never done this before, but I have faith in you. Watch the cards as I cut. I'm going to tell you it's about 41 cards down the last card. So I'm going to cut packets of cards onto the table. Just say stop anytime you want.
Stop.
Right there. Do you want one more cut, or do you want to stop right there?
No, there.
You want to stop right there. You don't want to do one more cut.
No.
See, I think with enough practice, you would be able to do this as well.
Man? What?
There you go.
I'm actually scratching my head.
Well, you should never play cards with me. I mean, let's be honest. How good is that? It is absolutely incredible. You know, considering you're using a shuffle deck of cards in use, and that's one of the big advantages, by the way. It is a regular shuffle deck of cards in use. There's no stacks, there's no gimmick cards, there's no extra cards. The fact that you can really do this, or apparently do this, is phenomenal. The other thing is, despite looking very, very difficult, it's not as difficult as it looks. It's actually fairly easy. Once you understand the concept, it's actually not that difficult at all. And just like with the previous routine, another advantage is that it builds. So first of all, you cut to the ace, then you cut to an ace again. The third ace you cut and you show, you deal through and you show that you've actually hit 17 cards. And then the final one, well, I've changed the final ace, to be honest, just so you know. The final ace, I like to put the power into the spectator's hands. So I do a timing force, where you just cut the deck and you tell them to say stop, or whenever they say stop, that's the final ace. So I use a timing force on the final ace because I think that's a great way to finish it, and you're putting the power in their hands. Now, if you were really doing a full-on gambling demonstration, maybe you wouldn't do that. But for me, that works really well, and that's something that I really enjoy doing. Because don't forget, I don't really do many gambling routines. I like to make it more magic-y. It's an instant reset. Obviously, it's an instant reset because it's a regular deck of cards. And, you know, you can do it again. In fact, a lot of the time when you do this, if people see you doing it and you go over to them next, they'll go, oh my gosh, can you show me that thing with the 4 aces? It's very, very cool. And also, it allows me to confidently talk crap. And what I mean by that is I can talk about, hey, the ability to cut to 4 aces, talking about estimation, talking about shuffle tracking, talking about keeping track of positions, shifting cards from one place to another. It all sounds very legit. It all sounds like I know what I'm talking about, which I don't. But it sounds like I know what I'm talking about. It sounds like I'm pulling the curtain back on the world of gambling sleight of hand and letting them have a sneak peek. While in actual fact, like I say, I'm talking absolute crap. It's a wonderful routine. It really is. I mean, I think I first learnt this, and I could be wrong, but I think I first learnt this from Nocturnal Creations, which is a very old Paul Gordon book, which I don't think is in print anymore. But there's it's probably been published on various different projects and various different DVDs throughout the years, so you're probably going to be able to find it elsewhere. But yeah, it's highly recommended. It is, in my opinion, probably the best. I can't think of a better one. It's the best ace production that I've ever seen, and it looks real, which is why I love it so much. So there you go. It's called Estimation Aces, Easy Estimation Aces. It's by Paul Gordon. That is your second gambling routine that you've probably never seen before. Okay, so the final gambling themed routine that you've never seen before, I have a feeling is going to be very controversial. I have a feeling that people that are going to be watching this are going to disagree with me. I think some people might agree, maybe. I think a lot of people will disagree because for the final gambling routine that you've never seen before, I'm going to be using a packet trick. I'm actually going to be using a very old packet trick. It's a packet trick called Call of the Wild by John Bannon. Now, this is available through Mir Yidid Magic, and it's still available today. So if you want to get this, it's from Mir Yidid Magic. It's called Call of the Wild. Now, the reason I like this, and you know what? If I was a hardcore gambling guy, would I pull out a packet trick? Probably not. Maybe, I don't know. But because when I do gambling themed demonstrations, don't forget, I don't really do many gambling themed demonstrations. This really fits the bill because it allows me to tell a story about meeting a gambler and what happened when I met that gambler. And you know, you've got the production of the full house at the end of the production, or the royal flush, sorry, at the end of the packet trick, which is great. It does actually fit for me into a gambling theme, and a lot of the time the three routines that I've shown you on this video, I string them together. So if I've got a mem deck on me, I'll actually do the first routine I showed you. Then I'll go into the second routine. I'll take the aces out. I'll have the spectator shuffle the deck. I'll go into the second routine. Then I'll put the deck away and I'll bring this out as a packet trick, and I'll tell them about this story that happened to me many years ago, which is complete and total bullshit, but it really sounds like it's real. So I'm going to perform this quickly now so you can have a look at it and you can see exactly how it plays, because the other thing is a lot of people have never seen Call of the Wild. Call of the Wild has been around for a very long time, and it's one of those John Bannon routines that have fallen by the wayside. A lot of people don't think of Call of the Wild, they think of a whole bunch of other stuff, but they don't think of Call of the Wild, which is a shame because it is a really great trick. So let's have a look at a full performance right now. So Luke, do you know the difference between a gambler and a magician?
No.
The difference, very simply, is a gambler has to hide their skill. Because they want to play cards with people, they want people to bet money. If people see they're really skillful, they're not going to do that. While a magician is normally booked to perform, they want to openly display their skill. And the reason I tell you this is because I once got into a magic competition with a gambler. I was booked to perform at this bar stroke restaurant, and in the corner of the room was this guy that was just playing with a pack of cards. Turns out he was an incredible gambler. Like, he was one of the best gamblers in the area. Nobody could ever beat him. He was incredible at everything he played: blackjack, poker, everything. Anyway, I went up to his table and he told me that he used to be a magician. And one day he realised it was more profitable being a gambler, so he quit magic and became a gambler. And he said, but I still practice magic every so often. And he reached into his pocket and he brought out a packet of cards. Now this, Luke, is a packet of cards. It's not a pack of cards. It's a small packet, which you might call a packet. Now, I'll show you what these cards are in a minute. It's not really important what they are. It's not really important how many cards there are either. What's important is he took them from but you can see that all these cards are blue, right? He took them from a blue back deck of cards. Anyway, he said to me when I went over to him, he said, I'm not going to play cards with you, but why don't we have a bit of a magic competition? I said, okay, what's the idea? And he said, well, look, I've got these cards here. I carry them around with me all the time. And he showed me what these cards were. And there were 8 blank cards that hadn't even been printed and 1 ace. Look, he had 4 blank cards. In the middle of the 4 blank cards, he had the ace of clubs. And then he had another 4 blank cards. And I said, right, what's the game? And he said, well, it's very simple. You are going to have 4 blank cards. I'm going to have 4 blank cards. And the winner is the person who can do the most amazing thing with their blank cards. I was like, okay, that sounds fair. So
he decided to have a gambling game with the most notorious gambler.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I'm not. Nobody ever said I was like Brain of Britain or anything like this, right? So he had 4 cards, and I had 4 cards,
Right.
and then the ace was put down in the middle, and he told me to start first. And so I knew that he was going to do something really special, so I knew how to beat him. So what I did is I took the ace and I put it with the blank cards. And I gave the cards a twist. And this was one of the best things that I could ever think of doing. Because when I snapped my fingers, I took those blank cards and turned them into the 1, 2, 3, 4 aces. And I thought the gambler would like that. I thought a gambler would be impressed with that, right?
Yeah.
And he a smile went on his face, and he kind of smirked. And he went, "That's very good, son." He called me son. And I said, "Thank you." But then he blew me out the water, because what he did then is he took the ace, he added it to his packet of blank cards. And he said the only thing in a gambling game, the only thing in a game of poker that's going to beat 4 aces is a straight flush. And he snapped his fingers, and he took the cards, and he spread them out, and he now had the ace, king, queen, jack, and 10 of clubs. And the moral of this story is, it doesn't matter how good you think you are, it doesn't matter how good you think you are, there's always somebody out there that's better. There you go. So that's Call of the Wild by John Bannon, and that routine, that presentation, is exactly how I play it. And I love the fact that you've got all of those blank cards, first of all turning into aces, second of all you've got that royal flush production. It's great. I absolutely love this trick. I love this trick, and I'd highly recommend you go and get it. Now let me talk about some of the advantages. First of all, from a working trick point of view, it's instantly reset. So when I finish the routine, I just put the packet trick away, it resets instantly. Second of all, I love that the packet trick has a reason for being a packet trick. Sometimes you bring packet tricks out and it's like, well, why didn't you bring that out of a full deck? But this is an actual packet trick because you're bringing out these blank cards. You couldn't bring blank cards out of a regular deck. So it has a reason to be a packet trick, which is really cool. Third of all, I love the story that's attached to this. It's very engaging. I don't do much story magic either. I don't do much storytelling magic, never have. However, this is something that I do, and people always buy into this as a presentation, and it works really, really well. So I like the story. I also like the fact that this can be done without a table. I can very easily do this into the spectators' hands, as long as I've got good audience management and I'm aware of my surroundings. Then this isn't a problem at all. And although the cards aren't completely examinable, the royal flush is examinable, and to be honest, that's where everybody's focus and everyone's attention is, and that's the genius routining by Mr. John Bannon there, because he's got it into a situation where the cards that are potentially wanting to be examined are in the spectator's hand at the end of the routine. It's also relatively easy to do. There's just a couple of packet sleights, a Hammond count, a Vallerine and Rumba count. There's not that much to it, and considering there's only a couple of sleights, you get a lot of magic that's built into this routine. And like I say, it really does fit as a gambling themed trick, or at least in my opinion, it fits as a gambling themed trick. So there you go. It's called Call of the Wild. It's awesome. If you haven't seen it, it's absolutely awesome. It's highly recommended. It's your third gambling routine that you've probably never seen before. So there you go, guys. That's another magic stuff in the bag. That's 3 gambling routines that you've never seen before. I'm now going to throw this over to you. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? There might be somebody watching this that does a lot of gambling routines. So let me ask you, would you do any of these routines in your gambling act? Or do you do any of these routines in the gambling act? Do you think that I've completely missed the base and that you disagree with me? Because that's absolutely fine. I'd love to know your opinion. And if you want to see a 3 best trick series on anything else, please let me know. I would be more than happy to do them on anything. All you have to do is give me the ideas. I'm going to be back again tomorrow on Friday with 3 more videos. There's going to be a shorts at 2, at 6 o'clock there's going to be a live, and at 9 o'clock there's going to be a review show revisited. So once again, thank you very much for watching the show. Really appreciate it. I'll see you again soon. My name's Craig from Magic TV.